everybody who is here. Daniel and Jerry always participating so nicely. That's great. Great to see you guys. We are in a mastery session number 2. We had the team tweak the audio settings quite a lot. I don't know if you guys recall from at least Jerry and Daniel were here in the boot camp as well. From back in the earlier sessions of the Platinum Bootcamp, when we just moved over to this platform, when there were some audio issues, and we were really excited for this new audio to be a lot better than it used to be on the old platform, and then it kind of sucked, honestly. So yeah, we had some bugs and some issues, and got gradually better over time. But last week the team did a whole lot of tweaking, and it should be a lot better. So honestly, it should be pretty much like how I had envisioned it. So if any issues with the audio, then please let me know, because I can always switch back to like the older settings. But these are the new settings, and you will probably hear the piano a lot better. Having said all that, we are in mastery session number 2. I have a tune which I'd like to dig into, which is a song by Jamie Cullum. Why Jamie Cullum? Well, multiple reasons. I think he's awesome, first and foremost. I think he embodies kind of how to take any type of song and then mold it into something that is truly his style, but is very pop pianistic, if you will. Although he is definitely a jazz piano player as well, but he's not so heavy on the jazz. Like, he uses jazz vocabulary and jazz tricks here and there to spice things up, which I personally like a lot. I mean, that has to be fit your taste, so to speak, but it definitely does mine. But I think he uses so many of the concepts that we go over in the programs over here and in the entire piano lingo, when lingo stands for, well, language, if you will. So that's one reason. Another reason is that I recently, although not super recently, but I think it was the very first like CutCam video that I posted over here in the new platform, where I played this song pretty much all the way through, a little bit my interpretation, if you will, so improvised here and there, obviously. As you guys know, we're pretty much never going to do a song note for note in the same way, because, you know, we take the building blocks and then we go our own way with it within a song. But since there's that version over here in the platform available, I mean, my whole idea is that basically, when you know the lingo, when you know the formula, just watching what I'm doing, maybe slowing it down, but you should be able to pretty much make your own analysis of things. Like, see, like, oh, here he's doing this, and this is such and such a voicing, stuff like that. But still, a playthrough like that still goes pretty fast. So I think these mastery sessions are very suited to dig a little deeper into what somebody else is doing. Now, in this case, that somebody else was me, although I do use a lot of things that Jamie Cullum originally used in that version that he plays, or at least in that song as well. So I copied him here and there. Yeah, so we're digging into his style, mixed in a little bit of my style. And I just think it's pretty nice pop tune. I wouldn't be surprised if we dive a lot more into Jamie Cullum's skills, techniques, and songs. It's especially interesting to see also how he handles some of the covers that he's famous for doing as well. But this is a tune by him, an original called All at Sea. I think it's either his first, or maybe I don't want to give him less credit than he deserves, so to speak, but I think it might be the only hit of his pen, like the only actual hit that he had that was his own song. The rest of his hits, if I'm not mistaken, were all covers. Having said all that, we're going to take a look also specifically this tune called, oh, let's see, sorry if I don't have mentioned that. Very suited to see how to fill out music when there are vocals. So this is very interesting, I think. All piano players that also sing, which is kind of what we're learning here, right? We're kind of learning singer-songwriter piano. And obviously this can also be applied to when you accompany another singer, but there are a lot of piano players that we make analyses of that are singers themselves, the Elton Johns, the Billy Joels, Stevie Wonders, and whatnot. Jamie Cullum is definitely one of them as well. So what is interesting to take kind of extra emphasis on, what I wanted to do in this lesson, is take a look at what these guys are doing, or gals obviously, are doing when they are also singing and when they are not singing, because we've been talking a whole lot, especially if you're into roadmap number 3, or if you have done the Platinum Bootcamp, which is 99% chance if you're here on mastery sessions, because there are follow-up, obviously. So you know all about fills and how we like to apply those fills when there is room to do so. Now, this can be as complicated as a super difficult jazz lick or whatever, or as easy as just a little accent, right? And this tune has a little bit of both. Not too much into the heavy jazz, especially not for today, because it's kind of the, I don't know, the first, if you will, that we're really diving into this. But yeah, with all that said, I think I'll just play a little bit, although I did play a little bit just now. And then we'll just see what happens in terms of building the song from the very basis, which chords are in there, which patterns are used, and then see how Jamie would, and I also tried, I think, a little bit to fill out those gaps, especially gaps in the vocals. So yeah, let's first take a look at the chords of the, well, you know what, let me just play a little bit so that we can kind of get into the vibe of the tune. As always, if there are questions, pop them in the chat. I keep an eye on that. So yeah, with that said. Okay, so now I didn't sing. I played the intro and then I went into the verse, right? And in all honesty, I was kind of in doubt. Should I play a little bit more to get more into the vibe, or shall I just first explain the intro? Hence the fact that I was thinking, so I wasn't singing. I will do it with vocals in the next go round. But first, let's do that intro, since it's only 2 chords, and I think it's really cool, like a vamp type thing, right? So the first of those chords is an E flat, but it's E flat sus4 over there. Tune, I think, is quite interesting because it's actually quite poppy, right? It's not super jazzy or whatever, but he does have nuances of extensions and sus chords that make it a little more dreamy than just like flat out pop chords would, right? So the first of those is here, this E flat. So if I invert it like this and play a sus4, right? No 3 of 4. That's the first one. And then the second one, and this is another neat trick. As always, we're seeing what we can take away from things, right? What is it that actually happens? Well, the second chord, as you see over here, what do we have in terms of notes? It's a D flat, right? So this is your regular D flat, and there's a 6 over there and a 9. Now, obviously, we can say 6-9. We're playing 6-9, 6 and a 9. But in essence, we're just sticking to that voicing over there. And very often, this works well. I think we've previously talked about pedal notes, these notes that ring on top and just stay over there, where voicings below them change. Now here it's not just multiple notes of the voicing. It's the actual entire voicing over there that stays the same and just gives a huge amount of color, obviously, because we're talking about a fifth and a root on the E flat. And then all of a sudden, those become pretty heavily extended notes, right? A sixth and a nine, or two, whatever. But if you say we have a six and a nine, then 6/9 is a way of notating these chords. And then with that becomes the fifth, obviously. So that's not so juicy, but still. So if I just play, right? That works quite dreamy already. That's cool. Okay, so then immediately applying a pattern as well before we dive into the chords of the verse is breaking up that. And essentially this is the only thing that happens. But the song is very shuffle based, right? So we're not doing ta 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 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Not so much straight. But if I do one, two, and three, and four, 1 and 2 and 3, and then that kind of shifting accent over there makes it super interesting as well, right? So now this is, in my opinion, what actually makes it cool in terms of a piano riff-based, vamp-based thing. I could just do and that works. But the cool thing here, I think, is that this left hand is coloring the chord even more. By the way, we've seen that very often, right? From the 5 to the 1 as an upbeat. So, right? Onto the 1. And that's quite important to really have that shuffle feel if you want to approach this in this feel. But if I can also play it right, then it would be much straighter, totally different vibe, more dreamy even, now that I kind of tried that out for the first time. But anyway, we do have that shuffle, right? So ta-ta, these are quite close together than the before the beat and the actual beat, beat being the 1, obviously. Okay, but then we have this cool little thing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. This is very hard for me to count and play at the same time, by the way. So every time, I don't even know if you could see my hand go up and down, but we have the 1 and the 8th, right? And all these notes are kind of played on that offbeat, except for the ta, 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 ta. Oh, that one is on, by the way. Sorry. So that makes it also kind of in a triplet feel over that regular beat, right? Daniel, yeah, Daniel knows exactly what I'm talking about. Probably can word it even better than I. But I hope that feeling is enough to, I mean, get you to feel where they are, right? If it's hard to determine the actual accents, it might be easier because this is just going back and forth to know simultaneously over there, simultaneously over there, simultaneously over there, right? So top, 2, bottom, top 2, bottom, top. Yeah, and that makes it really cool. If we take a look at what the actual extensions of the chords are over here, this E flat, which was already sus4, now gets a 9 over there and gets a third, which isn't all that juicy, but it's kind of resolvent from that resolving. I'm not sure how to word that, how to say that in English, honestly. Regular E flat. Right? And then we really get this sus4 sound over there, which is just used abundantly in pop music, obviously. Sus4 to root. Yeah, that's kind of that sound. So, and then things become, I think, even more interesting, because now we go from that D flat over there. Yeah, and we have already established that this was pretty cool, right? 9 and the 13 or the 6th immediately there. Now we go to a third over there. And what is that? I mean, from the D flat, or like reasoning from the D flat, that would be a +4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, +4, or flat 5, however you want to say it. And that is juicy, obviously, very juicy, but it's not that out of the box over here because we are pretty E flat oriented, right? And if I would just play, I mean, you hear that it's dressed up, so to speak, but it's not completely out there due to the fact that we are still pretty, again, E flat oriented over there. So this is, by the way, again, same thing, right? I think it's a really cool vamp. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of, if we start kind of making the analysis from the root of the chord, lots of heavy extensions, so to speak, but given we are playing pretty much in E flat, we could also say he's just cleverly using the scale of E flat, right? More or less. I'd say Mixolydian E flat then, but at least for this part, right? This is all E flat, and he's cleverly using those notes to create this little melodic phrase over here. Oh. Yeah. So that's the intro. I think it's really cool. Going on to the verse. Let's see how we can kind of fill out some of these things. Let's see. When no one can bother me, forgot my roots. If only for a day. Just me and my thoughts, sailing far away. Okay, and then we go into the chorus. So let's rewind that. Or first, I'll show you the chords, then I'll rewind it. First chord, E flat. He does a lot of Elton John type, honestly, Elton John type tricks. I always think of Elton John as kind of the godfather of doing all this. sus2, sus4 moves. And obviously there's a ton of different artists who also do a lot of that, but I don't know if he, honestly, if he actually pioneered it, but he was just at that time somebody that did that so often that totally signature Elton John stuff. Jamie does that a lot as well. So using 2s and 4s in his rhythmic fills, right? So honestly, to color, but also to create groove. Right? That colors, but it's this is the typical drumming on the keys that I refer to so often. This song is an absolute embodiment of that. So yeah, first chord E flat with that. Oh, okay. That's no worries, Jerry, as long as you can just still follow along. So E flat with an added 9, and then the sus4 happens a lot as well. So 9 or sus2, right? Because very often it's played instead of the 3 over there. To the A flat. This is A flat sus2, and it hardly, if ever, resolves actually to a regular A flat. So it's more or less just the A flat. This is your regular A flat with the 9 or the sus2, right? Now this is your blatant, if you will, just bass version of voicing that. But do note, all these notes over here are optional and valid, right? So we could, in fact, also do something like this, which he does, which I'm going to do in a second as well. Yeah, so just having said that, it's A flat, sus2, and hardly, again, if ever, resolves to that regular A flat. I think he only does that for the first time in the chorus, which kind of adds a little heaviness to, yeah, a resolving quality of heavy resolving to the chorus. For now, just E flat, right? E flat, add 9, resolve it like that with a grace, kind of a grace note, but we don't actually do, but we do ta-da, so ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, ta-ta, right? Okay, more on patterns later. 2 chords. Let's see. When no one can bother me. Next chord. Forgot my roots. So there's that D flat again. Now it's actually D flat, and it kind of a key change over here, because now we go to F sharp major 7. So D flat is add 9, if only for a day. F sharp major 7, and then we go back to the E flat. Just me and my thoughts. I mean, those types of things, right? Because now we got the chords. This is actually all the chords in the verse, so not too many crazy things, but a very sophisticated use, pattern-wise, fill-wise, with those extension notes, which are mostly just susses, right? There's not really heavily extended chords except for that F sharp, which has a major 7, but the other chords only have 2s and 4s, and mostly only 2s, actually. The 4s are really just an addition to make some groove with. So let's see what I actually did over here. So this is just a really nice way to phrase that chord, right? Obviously, as I said, we can do a grace note, which would work as well. But I think there's some sophistication to not flamming too much, but doing an actual accent over there. Whereas this is, obviously everything can be traced back to accent, but that's hard to do with this, right? Because it goes so fast with grace notes. But if I do ta-da instead of playing ta-ta, ta-ta would be straighter. So it's ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Right? Makes sense? Over there again. So I land on... What I'm doing is E flat, inverted like that, more or less 2 E flats like this, right? If I now also add that 9, and I don't mean add in the way like this, but just add as in which notes am I capable of using. So I think this one is extra interesting because I do use it as filling out right? Really kind of making my own drum beat over there with different notes. But the beauty of it is that when you start doing that, melodic phrases start to arise. And the nice thing that I think you should go after, if at all possible, I mean, if that's hard, just know where you might want to aim for a future goal, right? This is not necessarily to say that you have to do that now, where you might think, oh, but I just really literally cannot do that. Matter of practice. But when you start playing like this, you start noticing that, I mean, super simple, just walking over the scale, but very effective, right? And then those little melodic phrases are things that you kind of want to start filling out. These are fills that are, I think, founded more from the rhythm end of the spectrum, but they definitely do make melodies arise, right? And I think the trick when you start like expressing yourself in a rhythmic way on the piano is to look for these things that maybe coincidentally or by accident almost, you play sort of a certain phrase, and when you recognize that, you want to maybe pick it up and finish it in a way that you think it's cool, right? So super simple example, obviously, but this can get much more complicated, and I don't even know if it's interesting. I think this was already pretty interesting, even though it's so simple. So techniques, because I think this one is also cool. This is really like a ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Dynamics are massively important, obviously, right? If I do it's not really the same, obviously. I also played it straight now as opposed to shuffle, but the ghost notes over there with the bouncy, I want to say the bouncy thumb, but it's actually the bouncy index now. But using that fifth over there, not so much to actually play a 5, but more to alternate between the two hands and kind of indicate where my more emphasized accents are in time. Now I don't play it. Now I do play it, but I don't let it sound. It actually, right? I only graze the note. But you see that by doing that, already my timing becomes a little nicer over there. Like the feel becomes better. And if I make sure that the audience also knows that those notes are there and that I'm aware of where I am in time, it's not so much that I play. It's not necessary. Even if I don't play, I mean, I explicitly try to do it so soft now that it's hardly audible, if at all. I think that's pretty cool. Stole it from Jamie, by the way. No credit for me over there. It's just literally his kind of feel over there, which I totally love. Easy stuff, right? And um, note that it's in fact the intro thing again, but yeah, so kind of a hint towards what he's already played over there, but also just A flat, sus2, and just a really nice use of the notes that you have underneath your fingers and breaking that up in a, yeah, very tasteful way, I think. So coming from that, I think one thing before I go to that. So here I do play more of a grace note, but it's still very similar to what I did earlier, right? I mean, that's just 100% making a fill over there, rhythm based. No melodic stuff going on at all, honestly, but it obviously is a little bit melodic because we're always using notes. I'm just gonna take a look at the, let's see, the chat I'm reading. Exactly, Daniel. Although I must say, with the 2/4 thing, it, oh, like when you resolve it 2 to 3. Exactly. Yeah, that's my point. So Daniel says that with the 2/4 thing, 4 2 to 3, or with the 2 2 to 3, like I exemplified it just now. The 4 comes on the intended beat. Yeah, I think you mean that the 3 comes on the intended beat. It's actually true. The 4 is on the, and the 3, the resolving note, is a little bit later. So ta ta, 1 2 3 4, right? It's the 1 is actually the unresolved chord, and then it resolves an 8th later, which makes a kind of a cool effect over there. But yeah, so note that this is always a totally different effect, right? But because now I do 1 and then the second 8, but you can time those things in any way you want, obviously. This is just quite suited for this tune, I think. But this move, going from 2 to 3 over there on an E flat or whatever the chord might be, I mean, that technique in and of itself, timed on a different beat, would be a completely different thing. Maybe we'll take that for a spin later on in the lesson, but I don't want to digress too much over here. But do note, these are takeaway things, right? So just a resolution from 2 to 3, we've seen that so often, right? It's this thing. And works very well for a grace note, but I'd say the takeaway over here is to try it out to do instead of, so 1 2 3, right? Ta ta, instead of one thing. Cool. Yeah, so now I did it explicitly, quite sloppy, and even. How cool is that? That's almost like a one note solo, right? Sailing far away. So, what was it? I have to think about like the lyrics. Where we're coming from? Let's see. Sailing far away, right? So we kind of add that. So now it's I think it's brilliant, and so simple, and such a good example of how effective it can be to make such a little fill with I mean, it can't really get any easier than this in a sense, right? Literally playing the root of the chord just with a little accent. So let me think again. Where no one can bother me. Shoot, no, I can't find the point where it actually is in the tune. Okay, we'll encounter it in a second again, but just know that one, right? So there's room in the voice. There was a little bit of voice on this A flat, and then you land on the... And that in and of itself, I mean, just this little flam thing over here, grace note, brilliant, I think. So simple and so effective. Sailing far away. Okay, we're gonna go on to... No, actually, we didn't really take a look at this one, and I do have another kind of nice fill out over there. So, forgot my roots. Do note, we're looking at what to do when there is voice and what to do when there isn't any voice, right? I say you can definitely do things like forgot my roots, right? So I kind of do a very sophisticated is not the right word, but a nuanced way of playing around that two over there, right? So forgot my roots. Now there's room. Same thing, for example. That's that rhythm thing that we just did over here. Yeah, you can do that over here as well. If only for a day. But you see that landing on the chord and just making really clear that that is the harmony at that point. I mean, the voicings are pretty nice as well with these added nines and all, right? And we're still sticking a little bit to this region of the keyboard, but once we break out to the chorus, we go a little higher and the voicings become a little bit more flared up with some high things as well. But you know, you don't have to do all that much when there is a vocal phrase. So it's not to say that, I mean, when you're just starting out, right? And you play a tune like this, I could definitely do something like, let's see, where no one can bother me, right? And that would be just laying down the chords and singing over it, and that works. That's the harmony. That is a bass version, a very good first step, but a bass version. That is not really what I mean by not doing much when there are vocals, right? When you play more filled out, if you will, you do a lot more, but just not so much more when there is an actual vocal phrase, right? You want to keep it nuanced and you want to keep it a step back, and you can even just lay down the chords and only do things in between the chords. For instance, forgot my roots, if only for a day. Right now I only did things in between the vocals, and this is definitely not very far from what actually happens in, I want to say this tune, but in tunes like this, in this way of playing. Okay. Yeah, so keep that in mind, because if you're doing all kinds of crazy things, whether you're singing yourself, first of all, that's really hard to do if you're really going, and you also have to focus on your voice being in tune, right? And sing it on spot on, everything. That's kind of hard to do, and that requires some concentration. So, but it works both ways. It's kind of a nice benefit to it that not doing too much actually is beneficial for the voice, because in the end that is the leading instrument, right? But as soon as the voice has a gap, we can do some things. And again, nuanced things are okay, right? So now I just laid it down, but you could obviously do something like, I got my roots, if only for a day. You see? So a couple of inversions, sus here and there that resolves. I mean, those things absolutely do work. Yeah? So from the side to what do you do when there are vocals, and by that I mean when the voice is actually singing, and what do you do when they are not? Well, for instance, this is another nice one, I think. Forgot my roots. Okay, so I had to think what the actual fill was, what he did. That's beautiful, right? I think. So what happens over there? And then it lands pretty nicely on that one. So we are on an F sharp over there, right? F sharp major 7. I use the 9 because this is something that happens constantly in the tune. So feel free to add it wherever you want. But I think the bass chord, if you will, is actually major 7, like this. Just a root over there. Lots of 5s in the left hand, but not so much like that, but more to have that funky little shuffle rhythm, right? So notes of the F sharp over there. A 5th, which is, the interval is a 5th, right? From B flat to F. But it's a 3rd and a 7th of the F sharp. So what we actually hear is where that last note is the new chord, the 5th of the chord. So it's very strong to land on that. And we kind of fill that out with the entire chord as well. So that's pretty strong. So that's the riff. I was a little late by when I actually initiated it, so I kind of sped up to still make it. But yeah, so you want to land on that C sharp, or want to. This is just a thing that happens, which kind of nicely illustrates filling out a gap in the vocals again, the entire thing that we're focusing on. So that being the... melody, but we harmonize it, and that is, I think, neat. Interval of a 5th, not that intriguing most of the times, but because it's alternated with other intervals over there that I think are a little bit more sophisticated, I will tell you what they are in a second, that plus the fact that we are just taking notes from the chord, right? This is the F sharp chord. Taking notes from the chord, the chord, the chord. Right? And that first interval harmonized with a 5th over there. We couldn't really do anything else if we wanted to stay in chord anyway, right? And if we want to have that as a melody. I mean, then we would have needed to add other notes, which we could have done, but that could have worked as well, but then we added a 9, kind of freely added a 9. Now we stay in chord. So that's the interval of a 5th. Then I hope that you guys kind of are able to visualize what the F sharp is, right? So I'll keep this down, although it will keep ringing as well, but at least you can see it over there in red. So second note of the melodic phrase, if you will, was the... So we're just walking down that chord, right? Second note was a C sharp, and then we harmonize it with an F over there, which is the 7th. That's nice and juicy. And also this is a interval of a 6th, right? and then we go down, and we have another interval of a sixth, which I think are that, I mean, you hear a lot of that in gospel type music, and gospel is very influential for all types of R&B, even jazz takes from that as well. So yeah, I think that that's pretty nice. So again, shoot, sorry. Yeah, and you hear that now in the final version where I played it, I also do pa-pa, pa-pa when I land on it. Yeah, just to indicate that little shuffle over there. It's not necessary, but it's these tiny little nuances that really make something swing, as opposed to, yeah, I automatically did it anyway, but I mean, that works pretty well as well, but it's those tiny little upbeats and those ghost notey type things that make it, right, truly swing. So it's constantly pop-up, pop-up, that accent before the true one leading up to the one. Okay, let's see. Any questions? No. Okay, cool. Chorus. Leading into the chorus, there are two chords that I think I tweaked from the original, but they just sound very good to me, and I have probably at one point given my own interpretation to that and just stuck to it. So in my mind, it sounds like this. I don't think it's what Jamie Cullum does, but I do think it works pretty well, which is when we come from this, if only for a day, just me and my thoughts, sailing far away. Okay, this chord. Minor 7, but I keep adding that 11th over there, which I always love on minor 7 chords. So it's actually a 4. We know that a 4 is an 11. Now that we have a 7 as well, we call it an 11. So minor 11 over there. And it kind of uses two tricks. First of all, dressing up a chord a bit more heavily by adding an 11, which is obviously a heavy extension note. But also, I'm using that exact trick that I told you at the very start of the lesson, which is to search for voicings and to let them ring, kind of, to search for voicings that you can let ring. Billy Joel is a huge fan of doing these types of things as well, right? When he colors his chords, very often he uses very similar voicings in his right hand, but as soon as the bass note change, I mean, just an example, B flat is no longer a B flat. I mean, B minor is no longer B minor if I play a G below it, right? Then it becomes G major 7. So stuff like that is similar. Kind of let that chord ring over there and thereby color it. Now that is also what I do over here. So yeah. Let me see where we came from. Sailing far away. I have this chord, right? Because it's the one that we've been using the entire time, the A flat sus2. With an F below it, it now is F minor 11. And then, and this is, I think, the chord that I actually made up, which I think works really well over here, is a technique that jazz piano players, especially when we're talking about, for instance, Herbie Hancock, likes to use this voicing is a quarter voicing. So it's a stack of quarters over here. From the F to the B flat is a quarter, from the B flat to the E flat is a quarter. Now I'm not going to go too deep into that because it's a very versatile type of voicing. I mean, whatever is below that, you can do that on a lot of different things. And then we're getting into territory of what are the actual functional, the notes, the actual function of the notes on the harmony that is the harmony at that time, so on the root, so to speak. As well as this, what I've been talking about a little bit, is that sticking to a same voicing with while the harmonies change. So keep that ringing, right? Because this works on a lot of chords. It's very suitable to do things like that. But just a hint towards something that I'll probably talk more on later. But just know that it's a quarter voicing. I mean, if I play that over here on this, which I do, on this C sharp over there, then I have a third, a 6, and a 9, right? With a nice little open voicing over there, which I believe kind of resolves nicely to that E flat over there, right? I mean, there are literally a gazillion ways that we could have gone to that E flat, but I think this kind of fits the tune quite well if we do. Sailing far away, right? And there we are in the chorus. So final little kind of well, it's a combination of pattern and a grip, I guess. What Jamie Cullum loves to do for playing fills, mostly like what we have been doing, but just in terms of voicing, is to play these types of things. So on E flat, it's kind of a 4-note voicing, right? But not necessarily filled out all the way immediately. So yeah, so 5's over there, and then there's the literal fill that I just did. Let's do it in groove. Yeah, is actually what you hear, but kind of nice way to harmonize it again, I guess. So it's using that fifth and just encapsulating a chord in fifths. Obviously, you can fill it out the entire way, which kind of happens when we enter into the chorus, which is now. So we get to like a warm drink, it seeps into my soul. Please just leave me right here on my own. I like to use that same little quarter voicing over here when we get to that C sharp, D flat, where I'm even not sure if that is also in the tune. Maybe I made that up. But hey, that's part of the game that we're playing over here, right? Taking stuff that others do and then kind of mold it a little bit to our own, or we're free to add some flavor of our own, I think. Another time you could spend some time with me if you want to. Oh, let's see. And then we're back at the intro. So let's take a look at these chords. There's much less filling out over here, although a couple of points, but you see that the voicings become much fuller immediately. That's because you want to kind of take it to the next level because it's a chorus. So more doubling, more immediate playing simultaneously of the notes as opposed to what we were doing at the start. Oh, let's see, right? Then I kind of fill that chord out as we go along instead of which I can do as well. Let's see. But you know, these things kind of make a huge difference in terms of how heavy it feels. So same chord that we've seen already, E flat, but now encapsulated with 5s, if you will, to form a 4-note voicing over there. And then we immediately add the 9 as well for some dreamy color. Left hand octaves, feel free to I mean, the later in the song you get, the more, right? You can add even more, especially when you use pedal. But you want to have some body over there. Like a warm drink. That's the first chord, so actually just octaves over there, and then quite a full voicing over there for that E flat. It seeps into my soul. I think beautiful. This is a B flat minor 7 with an 11 again, and now this is not my doing, so to speak. I actually heard him play it like this on some live edition. I'm not sure if it's also on the record, but I mean, beautiful, right? Not just because it's such a cool color, I mean, in my opinion, a cool color for the chord, but also because we're coming from E flat, so that's another one of those ringing tones, you know, that you just keep there. On top of the fact that he can again do, now not with a 2 or a 4 to a 3, but with a 4 to a 5, which is actually, if we, I mean, dig into what is happening in the harmony, as you know, hopefully, a B flat minor 7, right, is actually a D flat or a C sharp with a B flat in the bass. That's kind of a hack. Translating to C, an A minor 7 is actually a C over A, right? A G minor, E minor 7 is actually a G over E. That works like that's the parallel relative connection. It's kind of a trick, but not just a trick in terms of remembering, so that you know, like, okay, I have to play A minor 7, so simply a C chord over A, but also in terms of playing and sound, because this is actually that same thing on C sharp, right? And therefore, or not just therefore, but it's one of the reasons that it sounds good is because we're actually doing this, right? Or, but now we're not actually playing that C sharp, but we're playing B flat below it. And then it becomes a totally different, much juicier story, because it's no longer just from 2 to 3, but it's an 11th on that chord, which is also made minor 7 over. But it sounds good, right? Third chord is, so did it make sense? Sorry, B flat minor 7, and then with an added 11. Down over there. Then bass note over there. Still have to have that one, so I have that one. 1 and 7 in my left hand. Yeah. A flat or G sharp with a 9. Obviously, in Jamie Cullum style for this tune, you can do some pattern stuff with that. And then I like to, again, voice this chord however you want to do that, but F sharp minor 11th. So I like to keep it in there. Honestly, I'm not sure if it happens in the original. And then we have that chord that I came up with myself. So it's that quarter voicing with a 6, so 6/9 chord for the C sharp. Let's do it again. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, I like to do this sometimes as well. So what am I doing here? This is in the style that we have just seen, octaves and then with a 5th there, so it's kind of not exactly the same thing, but playing octaves and then seeing what's in between it, so to speak, for the chord. So we're doing F sharp minor. We have these 2 notes more or less as options. So if I'm just doing this, I have a 3rd, copy the 3rd over there, and a 7th, right, over F. So a 3rd of the chord, no 5th in this sense, but we can always leave that out, and a 7th and again a 3rd. And then That's just, I guess, a bit of Robert Glasper influence or whatnot. I don't know. I just came up with this. Not just now, but way to voice it. So it's a fifth, and then we have a 9 over there as well. So this is kind of heavy, obviously, heavy jazz, but I like it. Later on, you could spend some time with me if you want to. Super interesting that we're now, because we want to go back to that. Yeah, that's kind of a gospel ending. I think I don't have enough time. No, I don't have enough time to go into that, to explain the theory behind that. But just know that we're playing an F sharp over there. So I think that sounds really cool, right? F. So the first time that you then play the intro again, we actually play it from A flat, while it insinuates that coming from E flat from the very start, but the A flat there just, it's again, it's, I think it originates from gospel, but again, I don't really have enough time to explain where it comes from. But a nice way to resolve back to that intro. Oh, let's see. When no one can bother me. Yeah. And then actually it goes back to, but that's the same verse, or at least the same chords, and just extended a bit more to the top over there. But we have seen the intro, we've seen the verse, we've seen the chorus, and kind of what we can do when there is voice, what we can do when there is no voice, although I kept it kind of nuanced. I don't know, maybe in a next time, just let me know what you think was useful, what you'd like to learn more about, and then maybe in another one I can go a bit deeper into, I don't know, the higher territories of the keyboard. Although we did do this one, obviously that was a little bit higher. So, but yeah, you can obviously also start filling things out with actual licks and stuff and whatnot. I don't think he really does that too often. Maybe here and there in a live rendition, he does some type of crazy jazz solo. Yeah, happy to go into stuff like that. Although there is a Play Like Jamie bootcamp coming up, which will definitely be more about that as well. But that is just a different vocabulary, so to speak, or at least it's more advanced, more complicated. But happy to do lessons on licks as well. I think for now, this was kind of it. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If not, I think I'll leave it at that. And we'll thank you for your attention. And see you hopefully on, for those that are also doing the boot camp. Thank you. That is super kind. Okay, good stuff. I will keep this in mind. Let's see if I can. Thanks for the feedback, guys. And for everybody that is watching this in a replay, you can also leave comments below the actual post where the replay is situated as well. So there's kind of a post made for this event. Feel free to ask questions there as well if you have them. For now, that's it. Sunday, first introductory workshop for the Play Like Billy Bootcamp, which will run for 4 weeks starting this Sunday. And that's it for now. Thanks for your attention, guys, and hope to see you Sunday or else in the next session. Bye-bye.